we can look a little bit more optimistically at this next part. How about 3 bold predictions for the Bruins this year? Dan Conlon, I start with you. Give me a bold prediction for this Bruins team.
Looking at this first line, they re-signed Geeky in the offseason, Pasta, another 100 points. They're going to have Lindholm in the middle, and they gave him a big contract last year. So I'll go Lindholm over 75 points this year. He's playing alongside 2 30-goal scorers. There's really no excuse he shouldn't produce this year, barring any injuries. Be on the power play on that first line. I think Bruins management's like, hey, we gave you a big contract. Like, we're going to put you on this line because we don't want to look bad. So I'm going to go Lindholm has a bounce-back year. I think Geeky hopefully can put up another 30 goals. He just signed a big contract. And
40, by the way, 48 and a half minutes into our first podcast, we've not talked about the only other guy who scored for the Bruins last year, Morgan Geeky. That was the first mention right there.
And it was a little under the radar. I feel like people kind of forgot about that. But
second best shooting percentage in the NHL. I just don't know if that happens again. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. I like the kid.
Hey, gotta give Sweeney some flowers too. He did sign that guy 2 years ago, and he's had 2 good seasons. So props to Sweeney on that one. Great signing. But yeah, I think Lindholm has a bounce back year, and I think he puts up 75 points this year. I think that's a bold prediction.
Points, man. 75. That's a big number for Elias. That would be huge, man. And if those 2 guys beside him are going to shoot the way they did, who knows? If someone was their first line center for the whole season last year, they might have got 65, 70 points, but we didn't see that. We saw a lot of shuffling there. I'll go with my first bold one, and we'll go back and forth. My first bold prediction is this is Matt Poitras' last season as a Bruin entirely. He is being sent down to Providence, signed to Providence to start the season. Again, that comes in the face of you signing 4th line dusters for multi-year deals so that Poitras has options. So all of a sudden right away, day one of free agency with the Corrali signing, it's like, okay, either Poitras or Minton is starting the year in Providence, and we really didn't need to do that. I like Poitras. This is not something that I want to happen necessarily. I think Poitras can still be a player for this Bruins team. He's obviously had some injuries. He didn't really have a great run of games last year when he did play, coming off that injury. And I just don't think the Bruins value him enough as a prospect. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you think they trade him because he, wants to get traded, or do you think they trade him to get someone, try to trade for, a top 6 forward or something?
I think they trade him. I think they trade him rather than him demanding the trade. The kid's about to turn 22, right? He's gotten some. He's played 66 NHL games. I can see a world where at the trade deadline they're not completely out of the playoff picture, and they're thinking that they can go and get someone at the deadline, and they don't want to use a first round pick, and the only real kind of trade asset they have is Matt Poitras, and so you can trade him. Hopefully put Casey Middlestad in the deal, but probably that's just wishful thinking. And you can get somebody to add to this team. Yeah, top 6 winger, someone who can score 20, 25 goals, and just to make one push towards the postseason. Whether that's the right move or not, I think that's what the Bruins are going to do. I don't think they value him enough, as evidenced by the fact that they basically brought he and Fraser Minton in for tryouts in this camp, where most teams coming off of a 15th place finish and having 2 young centers that you can develop would just have them develop at the NHL level. Instead, the Bruins go and get Sean Corrali. So that is why I believe Matt Poitras will be in entering his last season as a Bruin this week.
That's a bold take. And
bold, man. Bold.
It would be something I hope wouldn't happen. I think he's shown some promise, and we haven't gotten too much promise from young guys. I remember 2 years ago he was a 19-year-old scoring goals and producing at an NHL level, which I don't remember the last time we had a 19-year-old playing on the team. So I remember valuing that a little bit, like Sagan. But that's a bold prediction. I think this offseason, I think ideally for me, they have a bunch of veterans that could play well this in the first half of the year, and then they do what they did at last deadline and get some good draft stock and prospects from. If Arvidsson He used to be a 30-goal scorer. If he produces on the second line, if he has 20 goals so far in February, if you could get like another, Charlie Coyle deal out of him, I'm not sure he's an expiring contract. Maybe that deal was pretty good. I can't expect them to do the same thing, but if they could get some good deals out of some of these veterans at the deadline and trade them away, and then maybe open up some space and playing time for some of the young guys who are in Providence, maybe they trade Arvidsson at the deadline, and then Poitras comes up and plays along the second line and does well, and they find out about that. But yeah, there's not enough space for these young guys right now, so they'll definitely have to make some moves. That brings me to my second bold prediction. I think Jeremy. I gotta rephrase that. I shouldn't say I think, because then I'll get hate for it. My bold prediction would be Jeremy Swayman being a top 5 finisher in the Vezina voting this year. He's shown some promise in the past. He had a good playoffs a few years ago. Everything's lined up. Like, you got the big contract, you have a good defense. You're supposed to have a good defensive system with the coaching, and now you have a full training camp. So there's no training camp excuse this year.
Mm-hmm.
This is his make or break year right now. I know it's an 8-year deal. It's crazy to say 2 years in, but I think if you're a Bruins fan, you want him to do well this year, either just to go along with the success of the team, or if you don't like Swayman and you want him to be traded, he has a big contract, and no team's going to trade for a goalie that's bad with that contract. So Swayman doing good this year is good for this team, whether you like it or not. And, everything on paper, he could have a good year, and that's a bold prediction. Maybe he does get some Vezina votes at the end of the year.
I'm in, man. If he's finishing the top 5 in Vezina, this team will be knocking on the door of the playoffs. Absolutely. And dude, so much was made of that preseason last year. Clearly not having a preseason did not do him any favors. He was great at the World Championships. Take that with the grain of salt that you want. It's all a bunch of guys who aren't in the playoffs anymore. But he was excellent. I just think Jeremy Swayman is still much closer to what he was the season before, which was his best season in the NHL, than he was from last year, the worst season in the NHL. Second bold prediction from me. Quarterback 1 of power play 1 is not Charlie McAvoy or Hampus Lindholm. My bold prediction is that Mason Lowry is going to become the quarterback of your first power play. And really my reasoning behind this, Dan, is why not? Why not, man? I get it. Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm are both in the same boat of they have too much offensive upside to not be on a power play, but yet neither one of them has really ran a very effective power play with the Bruins since that 22-23 season, which even then it wasn't terrific. But 23-24 and 24-25, of course, those two guys were hurt last year for a lion's share of the games, but they just didn't really run an effective power play. And you got a lot of run with Mason Lowry there in the second power play unit. He's obviously the big kid. He's got so much offensive upside. If you're going to be a team that is really banking on your power play, I just think you should have your most skilled offensive defenseman out there. And clearly Mason Lowry is not your most well-rounded defenseman. I think he won the Masters last year. He was like a -40. But he does have the best shot of anyone on your blue line. He's the most creative. He can skate his way out of danger a little bit. For me, Mason Lowry, QB1, power play 1. Let's just try it.
I'm all for it. And we should be
Bruins, baby.
We should be all for trying things this year. This is the year to try things.
It's like college, man. Experiment a little bit.
I'm all for that. Maybe I'm not sure when that would show up in the season if a McAvoy injury has to, or a Lindholm injury, who both got injured last year. Maybe that's what it has to take again. But I would love seeing the coaching staff give some confidence in Lowry, put him there early and see what he's got. He is your most offensively gifted defenseman. We know what his weaknesses are. We saw that last year. Hopefully we improve upon that this year. But put him in positions to succeed and where he does well, and power play where he does well.
Love it.
And then this brings me to my last bold prediction. Number 3, and this is a bold one. Not only do the Bruins make the playoffs, but they actually win a playoff round.
Oh.
hear
All
me out.
right.
Hear me out.
They're facing Toronto. Okay.
Yeah, I was like, hear me out on this one. They make the playoffs as a last wild card team.
Okay.
And if you're a wild card team, that means you're versing, someone that won the division, which could be the Maple Leafs if they do well without Marner. The Panthers are going to be injured the whole year,
Yep.
so I feel like
Leafs could win this diviison. Yeah,
the division is good, but it's up for grabs. Montreal's, they've been building something over there for a while now. You keep an eye on them. If they have good goaltending, maybe they can make a leap. And the Capitals did good last year out of nowhere too. So I could totally see, anything happens. This isn't like the NBA where the Celtics are going to beat the 8th seed no matter what happens every year.
Yeah.
Even though that didn't happen, but one time. But I think the Bruins, if they do make the playoffs, that means they probably have a good enough performance from a lot of people, and people aren't that injured. Swayman has won a playoff series before. I could
by himself,
basically. So I could, goaltending is the most important thing in the playoffs. If Swayman has a good year, I'm not saying they're going to make a run that's that big, but I could see them beating, the Capitals or the Maple Leafs, teams that always lose in the first round.
Yeah,
that could happen. Not saying it will happen, but that's a prediction.
But that's why it's bold, man. That's why it's bold. So you're definitely of the belief, hey, if they're at the table, anything can happen. Why not? My final bold prediction here on this first episode of the Garden Level Podcast revolves around Fraser Minten. And that bold prediction is this: Fraser Minten, 40 points. It's bold. It's bold mainly because of who he's playing with, Dan. He's playing. It looks like that opening night line is going to be him centering the third line with Tanner Jeannot on one wing and Mikey Eyssimont on the other. I don't know how many of the points will come through there, but here's the thing. In the preseason games, preseason, take it with a grain of salt. I'm about to talk about a guy who had like 15 points in the league last year, and Mikey Eyssimont. But I'm like, okay, this guy's got a shot. Like, not metaphorically, like he has a good shot. He's good at shooting the puck. He's a big body. You play with two big body guys out there. I also think that's going to be a revolving door on that wing. I think Fraser Minten is going to impress the coaching staff enough with his defensive acumen. That's why he's made the team already, that he's probably going to go up and down the lineup. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a point in this season where he is playing on the first line for a couple of games with Pastrnak and Geeky, and he could show enough offensive upside and enough of a defensive game that he might even move up to the second center spot and bump Casey Middlestat down. Like, I could see that. And because of that versatility that Fraser Minten's going to provide, again, I don't know if he's going to play on the power play. He's certainly going to play on the second penalty kill unit, that he could get to 40. And if you get a guy like Fraser Minten getting to 40, like a kind of a Trent Frederick kind of season, 17 goals, 23 assists, that's a heck of a bump for a guy who has not played a full NHL season, really only played a couple of cups of coffee in the NHL. That would be a huge, huge lift for the Bruins. And that's why it's our bold predictions on the season for this great Bruins team. Anyway, Dan Conlon, that's basically wrapping up our first episode of the Garden Level Pod. Do you have any parting thoughts?
This is going to be an interesting year.
Well said. For sure.
Interesting year, to say the least. But, I'm happy to be covering with you. And I'm looking forward to, seeing what the team can do and see how it goes throughout the year. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs. It's going to be a roller coaster. But we'll be talking about it every week, and there's no escaping it. So,
yeah, bitch,
buckle up.
We will be here every week, man. Every week we'll have episodes. We will have these segments going out on YouTube throughout the week. So, guys, do us a favor: like the video if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. You can find us at Garden Level Pod on Twitter as well. You can find us on TikTok. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts as well. Talking Bruins all season long. For Dan Conlon, I'm Cam Stewart. We will see you on the next edition of the Garden Level Pod.